News every 15 minutes, weather every 10, and sports twice an hour.
Newstalk, KGVO, AM 1290 and now 101.5 FM.
You're listening to Montana Morning with Peter Christian.
An update on the Marcus Kaarma trial. Good morning, everyone. It's Montana Morning. It's Tuesday, December 9th, 2014. Right now we have dense fog, 29 degrees in Missoula, reduced visibility, and some of the roads around the area are slick with some black ice because of the freezing fog. So again, for the, I don't know how many days in a row, please use caution while you're driving this morning. Not quite as bad as it was yesterday, though. Good morning, everyone. The newscast this morning is sponsored by Kootenai Creek Village, the maintenance-free active adult community in Stevensville, where you'll have the best of Western Montana living. Call 777-5387. Our top story this morning, Dr. Gary Dale, state medical examiner, took the stand yesterday on behalf of the prosecution in the trial of Marcus Kaarma. Dale explained that he found 2 shotgun wounds on Darren Dede's body. Deputy County Attorney Andrew Paul asked Dale what caused Dede's death.
Based on your postmortem exam, and within the bounds of a reasonable medical certainty, have you formed an expert opinion concerning the cause of death of Darren Dede?
Yes.
And what is that opinion?
He died as a result of a shotgun wound to the head.
And have you formed an expert opinion regarding the manner of death?
Yes.
And what is that?
Homicide.
Toxicologist from the state crime lab, Michelle Duffus, testified about the results of a drug screen that was taken on the defendant, Marcus Kaarma.
This is the toxicology report from the state crime lab.
Is that the analysis you performed on the blood that we were just talking about belonging to Mr. Kaarma?
Yes.
And what were those preliminary results?
It was found positive for the cannabinoid class.
Duffus said Darren Dede's blood showed no illegal drugs. During yesterday's testimony, Police Detective Mitch Lang walked the jury through a video tour of the crime scene inside the Kaarma garage. At one point, Lang described some bloody clothing that had fallen to the ground.
This is a couple different articles of clothing. I was informed that it had fallen off during transport from the mail. Keep going.
Did you collect those as evidence?
They were collected, yes.
At this point, Darren Dede's mother left the courtroom in tears. She eventually returned and took her seat in the front row of the gallery next to her husband. Dede was shot to death in Kaarma's garage April 27th after Kaarma fired 4 blasts from a Mossberg shotgun into the pitch-black structure. Testimony will continue today as the state continues to build their deliberate homicide case against Marcus Kaarma. Flights have resumed after thick fog across the valley delayed planes at the Missoula International Airport for the second day in a row. Airport Director Chris Jensen says flights to Minneapolis, Salt Lake City, Seattle, and Denver were canceled yesterday. Planes began arriving and departing about 11 a.m. after the fog lifted. Jensen says the airport handles 15 to 18 flights every day with an average of 1,000 passengers. On Sunday, Missoula authorities were forced to chase down an escaped convict. 25-year-old Stuart Richard Brown, who dashed out of a security vehicle in front of Community Medical Center. Sheriff's Office Public Information Officer Paige Pavolone has these details.
We had an inmate at the Missoula County Jail that reported that he had an injured ankle, so he was transported to Community Medical Center by one of the jail transportation staff. When they got to the hospital, they were taking him out of the van, and they removed his leg irons, which are essentially handcuffs for your ankles. They took them off, and as soon as he got onto the ground, he took off running.
Brown made it about a block before some hospital staff, including a female nurse, and some authorities were able to tackle and subdue him.
He was still in handcuffs and a belly chain and in full orange. So people called the police and reported that he was last seen running through yards, and local law enforcement authorities were notified. At one point, it was reported that one of the nursing staff from the Community Medical Center actually tackled him to try to take him down and stop him, and then he was taken back into custody and charged with felony escape.
This is Brown's second charge of felony escape. He was arrested in August after being accused of brutally beating a stranger in downtown Missoula. At that time, Brown ran for 2 blocks in handcuffs before he was yet captured again. Missoula election workers finished their recount Monday of a state Senate race that had been too close to call. Democrat Diane Sands picked up 3 votes in a race against Republican Dick Haynes. The final tally, Sands ended with 3,932 votes. Haynes had 3,897. The manual counting started last Thursday. It continued Friday and then again on Monday. Haynes and his supporters put up a bond of over $2,600 to cover the cost of election workers as they counted the votes by hand. Montana's elections commissioner has dismissed an allegation that Secretary of State Linda McCulloch improperly used state facilities and workers to oppose a ballot issue. Republican legislator Jeff Esmond had claimed that McCulloch used her post to encourage opposition to an unsuccessful ballot issue that would have ended Election Day registration for voters. Esmond cited a newsletter sent out by McCulloch in the lead-up to the November 4th election. The newsletter referred to later voter registration as, quote, a smart law, end quote, that protects voter rights. But Commissioner of Political Practices, Democrat Jonathan Modell, rejected the charge in a ruling yesterday. Modell said there was no advocacy expressed in the newsletter. He says McCulloch should be commended for raising awareness of voter registration opportunities. Austin Knudsen, Speaker-elect of the Montana State House of Representatives, was on the phone most of the day yesterday dealing with inquiries from media about a new dress code for state legislators and was announced last week. We discussed it on Talkback yesterday. Knudsen says he was surprised at the interest.
I will preface this by saying that had I known this much attention was going to come over a dress code, maybe I would have tried putting some important legislation in this way, and maybe it would have gotten some attention. I'm utterly shocked at the amount of attention this is getting, and I'm hopeful that there is as much attention paid to substantive House legislation as there is to our dress code.
Some have tried to characterize the dress code as one that targets women unfairly, but Knudsen says he only gave his stamp of approval to the dress code after it was drafted by a female staffer.
There's no plot here. This is not targeting anyone. The fact is we've got 30-plus new legislators who don't know what the expectations are for a dress code on the House floor. I come from a legal background where you're expected to dress a certain way in a courtroom, and I think it's equally important that we reflect that in the people's house in the state of Montana.
Knudsen says many of the contentious sections of the dress code were taken in large part from a similar standard of dress required in Wyoming. A former Chippewa Cree tribal council member has pleaded guilty to embezzlement, tax evasion, and other charges as part of a wide-ranging corruption investigation into the northern Montana tribe. John Chance Houle entered the guilty pleas yesterday during an appearance before District Judge Brian Morris in Great Falls. His case is part of a federal probe into the misuse of government stimulus money on the Rocky Boys Indian Reservation. 3 felony charges against Houle each carry a maximum sentence of 10 years in prison and a $250,000 fine. Houle's attorney, Jason Holden, says his client has accepted responsibility and, quote, there's no doubt, end quote, he will spend time in prison. Newstalk time now is 6:10.
Newstalk, KGVO.
Missoula's official weather station.
A foggy start to the day again in the Missoula area. Expect those roads to be a little bit slippery as you head out on your drive this morning. And the high is only getting up to right around 34. I'm meteorologist Mac Ray for KCI 13, your first alert station.